What's going on, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in yet again. Tonight is the video that I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for, the top 25 metal albums of 2012 here on Fulton's Music Reviews. 2012 was an absolutely phenomenal year for music and a fantastic year for metal specifically. This is definitely the best for last. There was just so many metal albums from this year that were just absolutely fantastic, but tonight is going to be what I feel were the top 25 best of 2012. I have provided a list of honorable mentions in the description, so definitely check those out. Before this introduction goes on for too long, let's get on with the top 25 list of metal albums for 2012. And kicking off the list at number 25 is Swiss folk metal band Vie T with Helvetios. Now, this was an album that I was originally going to list as an honorable mention, but after seeing this entire album performed live recently when I saw them perform with Winterfile, it definitely seemed to come more alive, and I seemed to sort of get it a little bit more. This was just a fantastic blend of melodic death metal and Celtic folk. This was actually my first introduction to Vie T, and after hearing this album and after seeing them live, I can definitely say that I'm very, very impressed with this band. Definitely one of the best albums to come out this year. Definitely one of the most unique sounding albums as well. 25, Vie T with Helvetios. At number 24, we have New York City-based experimental black metal band Faceless with Years Past Matter. Now, this is another Colin Marson project from this year. Colin was definitely a busy guy this year, and I gotta say this was probably my favorite project of his to come out this year. Follow-up to 2011's Diotima, this album has more of a melodic edge, more of an atmospheric edge for the band, and definitely one of their best albums, if not their best album. Just a terrific amount of atmosphere and desolation in both the guitar and in the vocals. Just terrific energy and just phenomenal speed and just really cool melodic passages in the chord progressions on this. Really interesting stuff. Definitely one to check out if you're a fan of experimental black metal, and definitely one of the best Faceless albums to come out. So 24, Faceless with Years Past Matter. And coming in at number 23, our Swedish technical death metal masters Spawn of Possession with Incurso. Now, this was the long-awaited follow-up to 2006's Nachtmystium, and since then there has been some slight member changes. This album including Christian Muenzer of Obscura and Necrophagus fame on lead guitar, which was absolutely one of the best things I've ever heard in this band's existence. The arrangements and just the song structures are just so carefully nuanced, and this is an album that definitely makes you pay attention to every single note that each player on this album is doing. Basically flows like a jazz album, but just full of just technical death metal brutality. Just a phenomenal piece of technical death metal here in 2012, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the best pieces of technical death metal ever written. Definitely one to check out if you were a fan of that kind of stuff. Number 23, Spawn of Possession with Incurso. And coming in at number 22, we have English black metal band Winterfile with the Threnody of Triumph. Now, this was a band and an album that I first discovered through my good buddy Sean Count Blagareth, who did an excellent review of this earlier this year. Definitely check this out. But just an absolutely fantastic piece of atmospheric black metal with just some really beautiful folk elements thrown in there. Just terrific songwriting, terrific atmosphere, and just really beautiful melodies. This is one of the best black metal albums I've heard all year, and definitely deserving of being on this list. Definitely one to check out if you're a fan of atmospheric black metal or even atmospheric folk metal. Definitely a really solid album. Thank you so much for doing the review, Sean, and definitely check out this album. 22, Winterfile with the Threnody of Triumph. Coming in at number 21, we have Norwegian progressive black metal band BorkMagar with Erd. Now, this was the follow-up to 2010's Universal, and the return of ICS Vortex on vocals and bass duties. Now, Vintersorg is still performing lead vocals on this album, and I believe this was the very first occurrence where we have ICS Vortex and Vintersorg singing on the same album. Just an absolutely fantastic thing to hear. Really operatic, a lot more melodic and triumphant sounding in the vocal department in comparison to some of the past work by BorkMagar, but just phenomenal to hear both ICS Vortex and Vintersorg on lead vocals. Definitely something to check out if you were a fan of progressive black metal, and one of the best albums to come out all year. Number 21, BorkMagar with Erd. Coming in at number 20, we have Indianapolis-based progressive metal band The Contortionist with Intrinsic. Now this was an album that definitely did not blow me away at first listen. It's something that definitely had to grow on me over the course of the year. This was the follow-up to 2010's Exoplanet, which was primarily a progressive deathcore record. But on this one, the band is experimenting with more of a progressive, more of an ambient kind of sound in their music, very much inspired by bands like Cynic. This difference is definitely not a bad one, just one to catch you off guard if you haven't heard this album yet. This isn't a letdown of an album, though, in comparison to the first one, though. Just definitely something that you're going to have to sit with for a while. Definitely something that's going to take a little bit of time for its true colors to finally come out. But definitely a phenomenal album. Definitely glad I revisited this a little bit later on, because it is definitely deserving to be on this top 25 list. Number 20, The Contortionist with Intrinsic. Moving on to number 19, we have the almighty Swedish extreme metal masters Meshuggah with Koloss. Now this was the long-awaited follow-up to 2008's Obscene, which was one of my favorite Meshuggah albums ever. This is definitely a little bit different, though. Extremely hard-hitting of an album, but it shows the band a little bit more of a laid-back sort of way, but laid back for Meshuggah is definitely no snooze fest. Some of the hardest crushing riffs that I've ever heard from this band, especially in the title track, I Am Colossus. But definitely a little bit of a slower pace, definitely a ton of variety, but as the band goes into its mid-40s, I mean, it's just incredible to hear them still hit with such ferocity, and it's just incredible what they're able to do. The dizzying riffs that they're able to construct are just fucking incredible. But definitely not a letdown of an album, but definitely a little bit more toned down than some of their past work, but definitely one of the most solid pieces of extreme metal to come out all year. Number 19, Meshuggah with Koloss. Coming in at number 18, we have another colossal release from Sweden, this time the progressive death metal band In Mourning with The Weight of Oceans. And after being a fan of the band's first two albums, Shrouded Divine and Monolith, I was very excited to hear that this was coming out this year. This was an album that did not strike me like their first two albums did at first listen, but after multiple listens I realized this was probably one of the best albums they have ever done. On this album the band is experimenting with more of a atmospheric, more progressive sound, and it conveys the nautical, ocean-based theme that they have going throughout this album extremely, extremely well. If you are a fan of atmospheric progressive death metal, you will absolutely love this album. Number 18, In Mourning with The Weight of Oceans. Coming in at number 17, we have Virginia-based sludge metal band Baroness with Yellow and Green. Now this was the tremendous follow-up to 2009's Blue record, and even though there are more colors added to their already existing color spectrum discography, there's also more colors found in the music on this double CD set. Just a tremendous amount of melody and beauty here. The sludge metal elements that Baroness is known for are still here, but in a little bit of a smaller dose. There's more of a sort of early 60s and 70s Beach Boys sort of nautical, like surf rock element here, and it just works with their music tremendously well. Just a terrific amount of beauty and melody in some of these songs. Definitely some hard-hitting ones as well, but definitely a musical journey throughout both of these small, short, full-length records. Definitely really cool that they broke this up. This definitely has its own personality, and definitely one to check out if you're a fan of more melodic sludge metal. Number 17, Baroness with Yellow and Green. Moving on to number 16, we have yet another beautiful metal album to come out here in 2012. This one is the French shoegaze black metal project Les Discrets with Ariet Oubliés. Now this was the follow-up to their 2010 album, and I gotta say, this is just as beautiful, if not more beautiful than the first record. This is their second full-length album, but this band is already becoming one of my favorite French shoegaze black metal bands. The inclusion of the female vocals along with the male vocals are just absolutely breathtaking. There's really not much in the line of harsh vocals here, but definitely a big black metal sound that is heavy in their music. Definitely want to check out if you're a fan of Alcest or anything like that. Definitely one of the most beautiful metal albums to come out all year. Number 16, Les Discrets with Ariet Oubliés. Coming in at number 15, California-based technical death metal band The Faceless with Autotheism. Now this was the long-awaited follow-up to 2008's Planetary Duality, which received sort of mixed reviews based on its production and overall sound, but on this new album the production is pretty top-notch, and the music definitely took a little bit of a drastic change as well. The majority of this album is full of clean vocals, as opposed to the majority of death metal growling vocals found on the first two albums. And the vocals were done by Michael Keane himself, and he really just sounds really good on this album. The band is focusing more on the progressive direction, as I said, and as I said in my review of it, the band makes their influences really obvious in their music, but they blend it together in such a way where it just sounds fresh and new. The album alone is worth it for the first three opening tracks. The Autotheist Movement, just a tremendous effort on those three tracks. Definitely want to check out if you're a fan of progressive death metal and even technical death metal. The clean vocals would definitely be a nice touch to fans who aren't fans of full-out screaming vocals and technical death metal, but definitely one of the best releases in their discography, one of the best releases of 2012. Number 15, The Faceless with Autotheism. And coming in at number 14 is the Norwegian progressive black metal icon Ishan with Eremita. Now, all of you will probably know Ishan from his earlier work with the band Emperor from the early 90s, but this is his fourth studio album as a solo artist, and it just continues to be the case that he is just one of the best at doing this progressive death metal thing, and he is one of the pioneers of the black metal sound in general, but even with the release of this fourth studio solo album, he just continues to push the boundaries of the black metal sound that he just helped formulate in the early 90s, and more of an avant-garde, more of a progressive element on this album. More use of the saxophone that was found on his previous 2010 album After, which was also just phenomenal, but definitely want to check out if you're a fan of avant-garde, black metal, avant-garde in general, and just progressive black metal. And Ishan, you just really can't go wrong with this guy these days. Just tremendous artist to check out. Number 14, Ishan Eremita. And coming in at number 13, from Sacramento, California, the alternative metal masters Deftones with Koi no Yokan. And once again, they just continue to show that they are one of the most consistent and one of the best, if not the best, bands in this musical style. And this is the follow-up to 2010's Diamond Eyes, which was a tremendous release for the band. And as always, this band just continues to show that they are the masters of beautiful brutality. It is just so incredible to hear how much emotion they are able to pack into these hard-hitting metal songs. Chino's vocals are just so emotionally filled, whether he is screaming or singing these beautiful melodies. It's just an incredibly consistent album from beginning to end, and more of an emotional ride rather than a heavy-hitting ride as the previous album, Diamond Eyes, was, but still absolutely no letdown, and definitely one of the most beautiful metal albums here in 2012. Definitely one for Deftones fans to check out. Number 13, Deftones with Koi no Yokan. And coming in at number 12, from Chicago, the heavy metal revival band Dawnbringer with Into the Lair of the Sun God. This release is just so freaking cool. This was a release fronted by Chris Black of Nachtmystium and Superchrist and High Spirits fame. And this is just one of the coolest releases, just based on the heavy metal revival, just based around early Iron Maiden, some early Deep Purple, just the way that the riffs are constructed and just the overall sound of this album just sounds so 70s and early 80s, and it just rocks. I absolutely love what they were able to accomplish with this record. This is the follow-up to 2010's Nucleus, which was also in this sort of heavy metal revival vein, but this one is just the better of the two. Just incredible stuff. If you're a fan of early Iron Maiden, just put this on and just rock the hell out to it. Definitely one to check out on their Bandcamp page. Definitely one to be on this list in 2012. Dawnbringer, Into the Lair of the Sun God, number 12. Coming in at number 11 from Melbourne, Australia, the extreme progressive metal band Ne Obliviscaris with Portal of Eye. Now this was a long-awaited debut full-length from this band, but it was well worth the wait. This was such a terrific blend of progressive metal, black metal, folk metal, just all unified in such a unique sounding way. The inclusion of the violins in some of these songs is just absolutely beautiful and just really adds to the musical dimension of these tracks as well as the album as a whole. Very lengthy album, but definitely a musical journey if you listen to it from beginning to end, and I definitely suggest doing so. One of the strongest debut albums to come out in a long time, and definitely a new act to check out. I definitely have high hopes for this band. Coming in at number 11, Ne Obliviscaris with Portal of Eye. And finally making it into the top 10, at number 10 we have from Stockholm, Sweden, the atmospheric doom metal masters Katatonia with Dead End Kings. Now this was the highly anticipated follow-up to 2009's Night is the New Day, which still remains to be my all-time favorite Katatonia record. But either way, as I said in my review of this album from earlier this year, Katatonia definitely still delivered with this album. They just kind of delivered in a different way. Definitely still has that crushing brutality that Katatonia is known for in their heavy riffs, but this album contains more of an emotional element, and Jonas's vocals have never sounded better, and the production is just absolutely through the roof. This is some of the best production I've ever heard on any album, and the drum sound on this is just fucking mind-blowing. Definitely one of the strongest albums to come out this year, definitely one of the more emotional albums to come out this year, definitely one of the strongest albums in Katatonia's discography, and easily one of the best releases of 2012. Definitely check this one out. Number 10, Katatonia, Dead End Kings. And coming in at number 9, we have Norwegian progressive black metal masters Enslaved with Retir. Now this is easily their most progressive metal album to date, and following up their last album from 2010, Axioma Ethica Ordini, they definitely had some big shoes to fill if they were going to attempt to trump that, and I feel that they definitely did with this. One of the best things about this album is the triumphant sounding clean vocals, which seem to dominate the majority of this record, which is actually kind of strange considering that the majority of their stuff in the past was primarily black metal vocals. But if you're not into that kind of vocal style, this is an album that you'll probably gravitate to more in their discography. But man, oh man, the melodies in these vocal lines are just absolutely breathtaking. Some of the catchiest in their discography, but easily some of the most powerful. Some of the most well-written songs in their discography as well, and just a terrific execution and flow to this album. One of the strongest pieces of progressive black metal in 2012, and definitely one for Enslaved fans to check out. Number 9, Enslaved with Retir. Coming in at number 8, is the Canadian progressive musical madman Devin Townsend with Epicloud. Now this was the 5th album as a part of his Devin Townsend project series, and an album that seemed to come as sort of a surprise considering I actually thought he was done with the Devin Townsend project after the release of Ghost and Deconstruction. But with this project, he just continues to show that he will just never grow tired of making music and never grow tired of pushing the limits and the boundaries of his own limits in songwriting. And on this album is a very unique blend of some of his previous work with the Devin Townsend project, mainly a mix between Addicted, which is his more pop-oriented metal record, as well as Ghost, The Beauty of Ghost with the Devin Townsend project. And both of them seem to merge together because there is an incredible beauty to a lot of these songs, even though they are really heavy-hitting metal songs. Lots of optimistic lyrics on this, talking about love, and there's a lot of gospel elements in this album as well. Just a very unique blend of sounds, very dance-like at times, but this is something you just want to get up on your feet and rock out to. Devin Townsend proves once again that anything is possible in the metal world, and he just continues to show that he's one of the most talented individuals in the progressive metal scene. Number 8, Devin Townsend with Epicloud. And coming in at number 7, we have another epic release here in 2012 from Helsinki, Finland, the progressive melodic death metal band Wintersun with Time Part 1. And really, I don't think it gets any more epic than this. I mean, this was the long-awaited follow-up to the 2004 self-titled album, and man, was it worth the wait. I mean, Yari has taken Winter Sun to a whole new level of epic with this. A little bit less of a guitar-heavy record, a little bit less shred guitar in comparison to the first album, but just even more epic than the first. The use of the symphonic elements, the use of the Middle Eastern kodo sounds, the gang vocals, and just the vocals from Yari himself are just absolutely phenomenal. What he was able to do with the mix and production of this album, just absolutely enormous and just incredibly immersive. Took a little bit to get used to the sound of the album, but once you get used to it, it definitely just blows you away every single time. Just so much to hear on this album, just so many just intricate layers going on in all of these songs, and just the epic tracks on this new opus from Winter Sun are just absolutely phenomenal. Cannot wait to hear the continuation and the final part of this Time series with Time 2, if it does happen to be just a duality of albums, that is. One of the most epic releases from 2012, easily, and definitely one for any fan of Winter Sun to check out. Number 7, Winter Sun, Time 1. Coming in at number 6, from Baltimore, Maryland, the progressive metal project Periphery, with Periphery 2, this time it's personal. And you all should remember this album quite well if you're a fan of my channel, this, of course, being the very first album review I did. But as I said in that review, it definitely took me a little bit of time to get used to this, from being a big fan of the band's first self-titled album from 2010. But after listening to this multiple times, I grew to absolutely love the vocal direction that Spencer undertook on this album, with a little bit less vocal processing, and the band writing in a little bit more of an accessible way. Definitely still technical, definitely still very progressive and heavy, but a little bit more accessible. I found it very hard to listen to the first album now. As I said in that review, I was a huge fan of the first album, but now I realize that this might be even stronger than the first album overall. Really great production and a really promising new direction for the band. I believe there is a part 2 to this album coming out soon in 2013, but either way, definitely one of the strongest albums to come out all year. Periphery 2, this time it's personal, number 6. And finally, making it into the top 5, at number 5, we have the French progressive groove metal band Gojira with L'Enfant Sauvage. Now, this was the follow-up to 2008, The Way of All Flesh, which was just a tremendous album. A huge fan of that album. And knowing that they were going to be doing a new album this year, I had extremely high hopes. Just absolutely loving their last album. Definitely not a letdown, but it just seems a little bit samey. This is a band that doesn't exactly need to change up their sound. They do continue to progress a little bit, but this definitely didn't hit as hard as I was expecting, especially after The Way of All Flesh. But just a tremendous amount of well-written progressive groove metal on here. The vocals from Joe Tuplanter are just absolutely incredible, as always, and the guitars are just so infectious and so heavy. The band is extremely simple, but they just prove that simplicity in metal is sometimes the way to go, and they're just able to do that in such a unique way, and it's just infectious, and definitely one of the strongest albums all year. Number 5, Gojira with L'Enfant Sauvage. And coming in at number 4 are the French shoegazing black metal masters Alceste with Le Voyage de l'Âme. Now, what I can remember, this was the very first release of 2012, and man, oh man, does it still hold up to this day. Nigel just seems to be the master of this whole shoegazing black metal thing, and what he was able to do with this album and what he's still able to do with this project is just absolutely breathtaking. The Journeys of the Soul is what this album title translates to, and it just could not be a more fitting title for this album. This is just absolutely breathtaking musical landscapes and extremely triumphant at times, and just a musical journey from beginning to end, absolutely. And it just does not get old, it being the first album of 2012, as I said. And even now, in the closing minutes of the month of December, it is still one of the best and probably the most beautiful metal release of this entire year. So, definitely deserving to be on the top of this list. Number 4, Alceste with Le Voyage de l'Âme. And coming in at number 3, we have the German thrash metal masters Creator with Phantom Antichrist. Now, a lot of people were really confused as to why Cover Killer Nation would possibly have this as his #1 album of the year. But, you know, it's plain and simple. The lyrics, to the music, to the overall sound, are just the biggest and most triumphant sounds that I've heard come from thrash metal in a very long time. This album is just absolutely fucking phenomenal. From start to finish, you are just left speechless. The riffs, the music, the melodies, the lyrics are just so powerful and heavy-hitting. Just the spark of revolution that it creates in your brain and in your soul is just incomprehensible. What Creator was able to do on this album is just absolutely mind-blowing. To know that there's just that ability to still write original sounding thrash metal in 2012, and they were able to do it, and they were able to craft one of the best pieces of thrash metal that has come around in a long, long time. Definitely check this out if you are a thrash metal head. #3, Creator with Phantom Antichrist. And coming in at #2 from North Carolina, technical progressive metalers Between the Baron and Me with the Parallax II Future Sequence. Now, for a little while this year, I honestly thought that this might wind up being Album of the Year, but it just fell just a little bit short. This was the continuation and the follow-up to 2011's Parallax I Hypersleep Dialogues, and as well as a continuation of many songs of their past work. But Between the Baron and Me with this release just continued to show that they're one of the most consistent, one of the most impressive forces in the modern age of progressive technical metal. Definitely one of their most progressive releases to date. I'm not going to say that it's better than Colors. I definitely still favor Colors over this, but still just a triumphantly amazing release. Definitely a little bit out there, easily their most progressive, as I said. Just tons of left and right turns just out of nowhere, but they just do it with such effortlessness and such finesse, and the entirety of the Parallax storyline is just absolutely amazing, and listening to the Parallax Part 1 into Part 2 is just absolutely phenomenal. Between the Baron and Me definitely crafted a masterpiece with this one, and definitely deserving of the #2 spot here on my top 25 list. #2, Between the Baron and Me, Parallax II Future Sequence. And coming in at the #1 spot here on my top 25 list of metal albums of 2012, Woods of Ypres, Woods 5, Grey Skies, and Electric Light. Now, not only is this my #1 on this top metal list, but this is also my #1 album of the entire year. This album is just amazing. Like, there are no words to truly describe this album. In fact, we tried to describe it as much as we could within 2 hours on the last Metal Melting Pot. And we just could have gone on and on and on about this album. It is just one of the most, if not the most, emotional thrill rides I have ever heard in music history. And this has nothing to do with the death of David Gold last year, before the release of this album. The lyrics on this album could have just easily been as chilling and eerie if he was still alive today. But the music, along with the lyrics, along with the vocal execution and performance, are just absolutely phenomenal. I don't think my arm hair has ever stood up more times during the duration of an album, ever. This has easily climbed to the top of this list, and easily climbed to the one of the top albums in my top favorite albums of all time. It's just, I'm getting speechless and tongue-tied just talking about it. It's just, not only is the musicianship and the compositions just absolutely mind-blowing, but just everything about it, the lyrics, how you're able to relate with each and every word to this album is just absolutely incomprehensible. David Gold absolutely created a masterpiece as his last and final work here with this band, and a work that is easily going to be cherished and listened to for years and years to come. This is easily the best work in the Woods of Ypres discography, and if Dave was here, I only wish where this could have taken the band, but either way, he left us with an absolutely breathtaking metal album here in 2012, and David Gold, you will be absolutely and surely missed. Coming in at #1, my top list of metal albums for 2012, Woods of Ypres, Woods 5, Grey Skies, and Electric Light. Just, wow. And that's going to do it for everything here in 2012. I just wanted to close this by thanking each and every one of you out there who has subscribed to me this year, watched my videos, commented on my videos, liked the Facebook page, and just everything that you've done for me over the last 6 months has just been incomprehensible and just so much of a breathtaking experience for me, much more than I ever expected to get at this point. But either way, wanted to thank each and every one of you for making this year just so amazing, and I can't wait to do this again starting in 2013. I wish all of you a very safe and happy new year, and I will see you next time. Thank you.